Hello and welcome to the Bokeh and Mocha podcast. We are back again, episode 7 this week, and Genevieve has graciously returned to us yet again, back from the dead, the living dead, if you will, kind of thing.
That's what it felt like.
We're glad that you're feeling better, and we're glad that you're back with us here.
I am glad to be back.
For those of you that are new, I am Griff. I am a photographer, 5 years amateur photographer, turning into a professional photographer. Of course, we've got Genevieve, who is our up-and-coming amateur beginner, still within the first year of photography. And, of course, Christopher's Creations, our 20-plus years professional photographer, 3 different levels of experience, and we're here to talk about photography and drink some coffee. Yeah. So this episode, we're going to be talking about stop motion. When you say stop motion, or when we got at least the episode layout for us there, I'm like, wait, hold on. We're going to be doing like claymation figures. We're going to be recreating Nightmare Before Christmas, Pengu and whatnot, kind of thing. But it's not too far off though. At the same time. So so basically, like stop motion is the ability to freeze motion with your camera. If you remember our exposure triangle episode, a couple episodes back, three episodes back, I don't remember. 2, 3, somewhere around in there.
Now they're all starting to mesh together. Now we're on a 7.
They're becoming
we haven't
one.
gotten past that we can't count on our fingers yet, and we're already starting to mesh them together.
Meddle them together.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the big thing on this particular episode is it's going to be the focus on shutter speed with this one. So because that's going to be like your primary key for capturing and freezing motion. I think it's something like film. Like reel-to-reel film, the old school film, like back when we used to watch movies on projectors and whatnot, that was at 24 frames per second, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Yeah, and then I remember like when the Hobbit movie was coming out and they upped it to 60 frames per second, and things looked a little bit off, and I think it's because of how our eyes adjust to what we're watching and
also the equipment if it's not matched. I mean, we have the same issue in the videography world. If we're filming at 30 frames per second, but your finished product's at 60 frames per second, it has just a little bit of an adjustment. Our eyes can capture a lot faster than 60 frames per second.
Yeah. And
it still gets to the point where we can see that difference in there.
And something just feels a little off, kind of thing. But the good news is, though, is with photography, it doesn't have to look off.
No,
because all you're doing is just capturing that still, but that action that's in the moment. Basically, what do you need to get started? Well, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. A camera that you can adjust shutter speed on. Like the example that we have up here, I was out at the park and I saw this dog playing fetch. I went up and approached the owner and asked them if I could snap some action shots of the dog. And I've got a series of 3 of them that just kind of capture that motion in general. We can, yep, you're good. Abigail, of course, our technician behind the computer screen. But
we went black.
Turned off the whole movie.
I mean, gotta love computers, right?
I love them. So,
yeah. With the equipment, though, we're talking about you need to have a camera that can adjust the shutter speed. So you need to have one that has manual mode.
Yep.
And from my experience, I prefer my DSLR cameras, like the one that we have up here today. This one is interchangeable lenses. You have the capability of controlling everything.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is there is a manual feature on iPhones, and I think some Androids too, that you can both switch it to manual and control the shutter speed. Some of those are you just download a second app, and then it has that capability to it.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to have the DSLR to really start with to start learning how to do stop motion.
Yeah. I mean, I think at like the museum a few months back, they had like a special like science fair kind of thing, and there was an app that they had on an iPad where you could like pose these Legos, and it would do like this little kind of stop motion animation for you, kind of thing too. So I mean, they are out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like on a shutter and camera perspective, yeah, that's the big thing. The other thing is going to be, well, we talked about it in our exposure triangle episode, but if you're increasing your shutter speed, you're going to have to increase your light somehow. So increase your aperture size, compensate with ISO, however you need to do it. But generally speaking, I'm getting the thumbs up. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. My samples here. Here we go. So anyway, yeah. So I caught this dog playing fetch just in its motion, and I'm pretty happy with it. The issue that I ran into with shooting this one was that my autofocus was trying to focus on the ground and not on the dog from time to time. So it took a little bit of dialing that in and selecting it and whatnot. But I mean, just look at how crisp and nice that
is this
looks.
With your 85 again?
That is with my 100 to 400.
Oh, okay.
Is what that one is.
A non-prime lens?
Yeah,
on your
I know.
Camera?
Wow. I know, right? Well, it's because my subject was moving. That's why.
For those of you who have not seen any of our other episodes, I'm typically the one that doesn't typically use prime lenses.
And I'm
all
Mr.
of mine.
Prime.
Yeah, and he's always Mr. Prime. Everything has to be a prime lens, and a prime lens is just one focal point, or one focal length. I'm sorry. Yep. So a 50 millimeter or the 85 millimeter, those are prime lenses, and then we've got the multiple levels, which are just regular lenses.
Yep.
And that one would be like the 100 to 400, or my favorite is my 150 to 600 from Sigma. But that's just because 600 millimeters, you can reach out and touch pretty much anything.
It's true, and I need to probably do an upgrade at some point to a 600 if I'm going to be doing more wildlife photography kind of thing, because it's good practice. I'm not a wildlife photographer, but it is fun to practice with. And with that, again, like you're capturing motion.
Yeah.
With all of that, how to stop motion. We also see this a lot with pictures of waterfalls, pictures of like, you know, birds and landscapes and things like that. But especially waterfalls, like whether or not if you slow down your shutter speed, you can get that nice little like kind of misty blur effect with the water. Or if you really crank it up, you can individualize those water droplets, and it's really, really cool. Almost make it look like glass in a way.
Oh yeah. So. Didn't you have a picture that you tried doing a picture of a waterfall with?
It was the dam.
The dam, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And you were trying to get it to where it had almost that motion look to it.
Yeah.
You didn't want it to stop. So
yeah, no, I did not.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to do stuff like that. Manipulate time.
Exactly. I am the time lord.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All photographers are time lords. There we go.
Well, we're just coming up with a lot of merch ideas. That's all there is to it. All right, we're going to take a real quick break here, and we're going to get into more of the nitty-gritty of what you can do in order to, stop motion, stop time, if you will, and use your photography powers. That's coming up next on the Bokeh and Mocha podcast.
I have the power.
I have the power. Welcome back to the Bokeh and Mocha podcast. We are talking about stopping time, stopping motion, using the power of photography to just basically freeze frame. Jay Giles band? Anyone? Okay, all right. Anyway, to freeze the motion and basically just kind of capture those moments. Abigail, our technical director, mentioned that there's a few episodes back I had a picture of an owl that I caught. This is kind of more of a what not to do kind of situation. Now, in my defense, I had just got done doing a landscape photography, a prolonged exposure landscape photograph with this one, and my shutter speed was still set for like 1/100, I think, 1/50, somewhere around in that range. and then I turned and I take my equipment off the tripod and turn around, and I just make eye contact with this owl, and it starts flying away, and I did not have time to grab to adjust my settings as I was pulling my camera up before it was gone. So it was more one of those situations where it's like either try to snap it or just not let it happen at all.
It's amazing. The animals don't wait for you to switch lenses or change settings or do anything really. They just kind of are there.
Yeah, and for the record, that one was with my 85.
Oh, because it's still a good shot. Yeah. I mean, especially for trying to do the stop motion, and they fly pretty quick too. So
yep, it's like still the slowest avian bird, if I remember correctly, but at the same time, it's still fast enough that kind of thing. Because I mean, I don't know what our shutter speeds are on these cameras, but I guarantee you, you'll see that blur just from me waving my hand like this. So it's even on the film side of things, you'll still get that kind of motion blur. And sports photography is another thing that that this comes into as well too. And I do a little bit of sports photography for the Fort Hays Tigers for their football season, and I wish I had thought about grabbing some of those too when we were prepping for this episode. Maybe another episode when we should do a sports photography episode.
We should, and we were just talking about in the break area, but we're what episodes we're going to do. Sports will be on it. Landscape. We're going to try and do a nature shoot, so maybe we can more really emphasize that when we're actually going out and doing the nature shoots too. Yeah,
but anyway. Basic walkthroughs of what you should do to prepare for stopping motion. Again, increase your shutter speed. If you want it to be frozen in time, you need to have a faster shutter speed. And that is going to, there's a couple of variables in that. One of them is going to be your lens focal length as well. So for example, that dog shot that I had previously, that was taken on my 1:400, so I need to at least have a 1/400, but I'm going to want more, kind of thing.
Now, you missed the episode we're talking about the exposure triangle, but you've taken enough classes with me that you kind of remember those. What is the big key to remember for your focal distance? Which setting controls your focal distance?
Might literally actually need a minute.
Well, your three choices: your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture.
Isn't it shutter speed?
It is not.
What is that?
It's aperture.
We got there. We got there eventually. No, but that's the.
So when he adjusts to 1/400th of a second to stop the motion, and you want your aperture to match the lighting, what's the big thing you're going to be focusing on? Focal point.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It's been a long week. I'm tired.
Oh yes. Yep.
Well, but that's also why we're doing these as well too, is to brush up on everything. Because there were times 5 years in the business when we sat down and did that exposure triangle episode. I was just like, oh yeah, that's right. I still have kind of those moments because. Every once in a while, just stuff just gets ingrained in you, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is what I do. But it's wait, why do I do it this way?
And that's why we really like having you here, because he and I can talk technical and for everything. It's just like, oh wait, you might not understand the words we're saying because we're like, oh, just change this and off we go. And it's like, let's keep going with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why you're here too, helping everybody else connect and learn for what's going on.
Yeah. So, in order to compensate for your shutter speed being a lot faster, it's not going to be open as long, it's not going to be exposed to its light source as long, you would need to, on your aperture...
Focus on your focal point? No.
You're close.
You're getting really close.
You're getting really close.
You're getting really close.
You're getting really close.
What do you need to do to get your focal point to change? If you want more in focus, you make your aperture
smaller.
Yep.
Which also means what way on your numbers? You're right.
Yep, we got it.
See, there we go.
Yep. Yeah,
it's the one thing that's always weird. To make it smaller, you make the number bigger.
It is, and I bet there is like some sort of like mathematical explanation for it, but I don't know what it is.
Neither do
But
I.
yes, to summarize, your aperture is going to need to be smaller, so your f-stop is going to need to be bigger. The bigger the number on your f-stop, the smaller your aperture is, the tighter it is. What that allows for is that allows for extra depth of field for your exposures. Now, so we're already working with a fast shutter speed, so less light, a smaller aperture, so less light again, which means that we're going to need to compensate with, of course, ISO.
Well, I mean, we can also use our cameras here. I just noticed it as you're talking about it as an example. So we have the wide shot here.
Mm-hmm.
You notice everything from the wall all the way forward is all in focus.
Mm-hmm.
But then we switch back over to Griff's photo. Nope, we're not going back over to Griff's.
My camera just died. There we go.
We're going to me. Okay. Well, mine, we have a different aperture. You can see the background is a little bit more blurry than what I have for me. So our depth of field is focused on me. Now we'll see if possibly we can go back to Griff's camera.
Yep,
there we go. Because you can really see like your pant leg is very much out of focus and the background's out of focus.
Yep.
Gives you that very narrow depth of field.
Yep.
So our aperture on that one is a lot lower.
It's a lot more open, so it's a lower number.
Yep.
And secondly, we're on 2, of course.
Yeah.
Which is where I love to shoot, and that's why I love that. My camera is using my 85, which is my baby. It's my bread and butter. It is my absolute favorite lens of all time. So.
Well, and then my camera is the one for our wide shot, and that's using our brand new lens that I have, which is my 14-20. Again, not a prime.
Yep.
But it gives us nice wide shot, but still that clarity that comes from your lens.
Yep. Now, if we could maybe, we might touch on that in the next segment. But the next segment, we're going to talk about just making your life easier in the editing room.
Yes.
Because ultimately, what you want to try and do as a photographer is try to do as much in camera before you take it to Lightroom or whatever open source editing software that you happen to have, and go from there. But we'll talk about that up next on the Bokeh and Mocha podcast. Welcome back to the Bokeh and Mocha podcast. We are talking about stop motion photography and how to freeze that moment in time, how to reduce your motion blur, or I guess if you're going for motion blur, that could be another opportunity as well too. But just basically ins and outs of knowing your camera, knowing what you're doing, and not being quite as afraid of that manual setting. So, in the editing process, actually, if we could bring up one of my dog pictures, it doesn't matter which one. We'll just bring one of those up here real quick. I probably should have prepped that during the break, but we were too busy making old references. Anyway, so if we want to talk about depth of field in Bokeh real quick there, that was one of the things that I was doing. Because like I said, I'm not a wildlife photographer, so I still try to take my shots on wide open apertures, or as wide open as I can. And apparently that's not what we're supposed to do, or maybe it is. I don't know. Kind of thing.
Well, it really depends on what you're trying to go after. Now, for like this kind of shot, having your aperture wide open is good because you want your entire focus to just be on the dog, which is your subject.
Yeah.
If you're doing something that's more waterfalls or nature driven, you really don't want that very narrow depth of field focus. So you need to bring your aperture wider so that you can, or more narrow, but your number bigger.
Your f-stop bigger.
Yeah. So that you can be able to get the entirety of it. Because it's not just the water that's there. You still want to get the background, which is the rocks. You want to get the foreground, which is the foliage, or if you have that in your setup.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what you want artistically.
Yeah.
Now, to kind of put a point, you haven't quite got bokeh on this image yet.
Yeah.
You're still out of focus. Bokeh is when we get those big disc circles.
It's true.
So if you actually had, instead of as low, if you had it more up, you probably would have gotten the bokeh that's behind that wall.
Yep.
Because your depth of field focus is that point. But you only can get bokeh if you have your aperture very, very low number, you've got that 2.0 or I think what's a 1.2 I think is the lowest that we can be able to do right now, and
something like that
in there in standard lenses, I guess I should say. But that's where you can get your bokeh. But for you, keeping your aperture this way means that your foreground and your background are blurred, giving you that focus to just the dog. And that's what you want to do, something like that.
And for
great.
me, and for me in the moment too, because this was at Frontier Park in the dense part of the trees as well too. So I didn't have as much, like you can see the direct sun on the background behind him, but we were in the shade and in the rest of this. So, you know,
that was always hard to work with in the darker parts.
And it's not like I can, you know, I mean, I guess I could have told the owner to like throw the ball in a different direction, maybe out into the sunlight or something like that. But, you know, I didn't want to interrupt him. Like,
but that ruins street photography.
It's true. It does.
This whole thing is about streets.
At
least that's your deal that you usually do.
And you know what that's called? It's called bruising the scene.
We talked about that last time.
Genevieve wasn't here though, but it's called bruising the scene, which is when you get too involved in street photography that you actually approach and talk to your subjects and everything. If you're talking about true street photography, then they don't even know that you took their picture. So anyway, but we try to do as much as we can in camera to get all of this. So that's where the knowledge of your exposure triangle comes into play. Making sure that you have that nice little balance of, you know, and the thing is though, is that I naturally shoot underexposed anyway, just because it makes my life easier in post-production. Kind of thing, because I would rather have to bring up shadows than have blown out highlights.
Well, and from a perspective of what I've learned, the lighter the pixel is, the less data is in that pixel. So when you blow out your subject, you lose any data that's in there. But if you're underexposing your images, the data is still there where you can be able to pull that out. And yes, you can still do more things with the Photoshop and everything to build up more data in there to create it. But that's not photography. That's
editing.
And that's a whole nother line of things. I consider myself as a photographer because I do almost everything in the camera. And then my editing just brings it to be the level that it should be.
For me, I try to make my because I like editing, but I don't like doing it for a long time on one picture kind of thing. Most of the stuff that I do at this point now is all I'm adjusting is contrast, exposure. Maybe I'm adjusting some shadows and highlights for the most part. Everything else is and maybe adding in a little bit of color correction into it because I shoot natural, whatever the native color correction is on the camera kind of thing. And every once in a while I'll be like, well, you know, we were shooting this in shade. I'm going to pop this on, you know, kind of a shade level of color correction to kind of make it pop a little bit more.
So you keep your camera at auto for your color correction
for my native,
and then you can be able to change it. And typically that's what a lot of people do. I'm one of those that does that as well. I keep it on auto white balance in camera, so that way it doesn't try to correct anything unless I'm in studio. My studio here, I know that I have the 5200 Kelvin is all of my light color. So when I'm in studio, I switch it to my 5200 Kelvin, and that's how I work with my photos.
And shoot raw. That's the biggest thing. Now, here's the thing, though. Do
you know raw? Okay.
Yes.
I'm like, I can't remember if we discussed raw and JPEG.
We haven't discussed raw and JPEG on an episode yet.
Oh, we haven't. Let's take the time right now to do that.
We've got 2 minutes.
Well, hurry up. I mean, the easiest explanation is JPEG is just a compressed version. So it takes all the layers of the raw image and puts it into one layer. That's really all JPEG does. The issue with it is when you go to edit it, you're only editing one layer. In RAW, you get to edit all the layers separately. That's the quick thing.
So naturally speaking, if you're just a photographer that is just wanting to snap some nice pictures and with your family on your new DSLR, it's okay to put it on auto. It's okay to shoot in JPEG kind of thing. If you're just using this as like a snapshot, like the good old days of disposable cameras kind of thing, where
that takes me back.
I know, right?
This is before your time.
I remember those type of cameras. Grandma used to give me one of those.
There we go.
Oh boy!
But this is the time to shoot in JPEG, and I know a couple of photographers that shoot in both. I mean, that uses extra memory, but
RAW plus JPEG.
RAW plus JPEG. But at the same time, though, like here's a question: if you're shooting RAW, do you show your subject?
It depends on really how much editing I'm gonna be doing on the photo after the fact. Especially like if I'm doing shoots in a studio where 99% of what's done is already completed in that raw format, I do show my subjects right there in camera.
Yeah.
If it's something that's going to be more manipulation to the photo, I have to do more corrections to it, then I typically don't. But because of what I do is all pretty much in camera, most of my subjects can see that. And then when they get the pictures, that little tweaks just amplifies what that picture was, and they're even more thrilled when they see it.
Yep. That was my experience with the Comic-Con that I just recently shot at, because I would show the raws to the people, and I'll be like, just wait until I get it home, kind of thing.
Yep.
So, but yeah, to summarize, fast shutter speed if you want to freeze, slow shutter speed if you want to get that motion blur, and see our exposure triangle episode to learn how to compensate with the rest of that. But that is the long and short on how to do stop motion photography, or to freeze time with your photography powers. So, yeah.
And I'm super excited. We'll take that out into the field because summer is coming up now. So we're going to actually take this entire studio we've been building to be portable. If you were with us on our last test that we did with Brooke, I believe last episode was with Brooke. We were able to show from the camera's point of view. We're going to be taking that to the field with all of the setup and get our stuff out there.
Yeah. But for right now, I think, can we talk about what we're going to be promoting next?
Yeah. Well, next week, we're going to actually be doing the green screen. This is one of my favorites, is getting in front of a green screen.
You're gonna be helming that one, because I am not versed in green screens at all. So
well, good. I look forward to it. And then you're going to actually be there too, I hope, next week.
Next week, yeah.
Awesome. Well, then we'll have you back there. We're excited to have you back too.
Yeah. Welcome back, of course. All right. Well, until then, I'm Griff.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Chris.
Until then, keep shooting, keep sharing. Thank you for watching the Bokeh and Mocha podcast.